Welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Z-Files, where calm curiosity meets restful storytelling. In this easy-paced narrated video, we will drift through a tapestry of puzzles, strange phenomena from history, deep beneath the seas, across ancient sites, and far into space, each one quietly unresolved or only partly understood. Listen slowly. Let the facts unfold like soft light. Learn, wonder, and allow the questions themselves to ease you toward sleep. Part 1. Signals from the deep. There are sounds in the ocean that no one can explain. Some of them have been recorded only once. Others repeat on schedules we don't fully understand. The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet's surface, and we've explored less than 5% of its depths. In those dark reaches, pressures crush steel, temperatures hover near freezing, and light never penetrates. Yet life thrives there, and with life come sounds. Some of those sounds, though, don't match any known creature or geological process. In 1997, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration detected an extremely powerful low-frequency sound in the Pacific Ocean. They called it the bloop. The sound was loud enough to be picked up by sensors more than 3,000 miles apart. Its frequency profile rose rapidly and then faded, lasting about 1 minute. When scientists analyzed the bloop, they found its pattern resembled the sounds made by living animals, but it was far louder than any known biological source. The blue whale, the largest animal ever to live on Earth, produces calls that can travel thousands of miles underwater, but the bloop was several times louder. If it came from an animal, that animal would need to be many times larger than a blue whale. No such creature has ever been documented. For years, the bloop remained one of the ocean's great mysteries. Some researchers suggested it might be a previously unknown species of giant squid or some deep-sea creature we'd never encountered. Others proposed geological explanations, perhaps related to underwater volcanoes or tectonic activity. In 2005, scientists studying glaciers in Antarctica offered a more probable explanation. They discovered that massive icebergs calving from ice shelves and scraping along the seafloor produce low-frequency sounds remarkably similar to the bloop. The location where the sound was detected, near the southern tip of South America, is consistent with iceberg activity. This explanation is now widely accepted, though it was never definitively confirmed. The original source has never repeated, and we have no direct observation of the event that caused it. But the bloop is not alone. The ocean holds other unexplained sounds. In the same region of the Pacific, hydrophones have detected a sound nicknamed the upsweep, a long train of narrowband signals that rise in frequency. Unlike the bloop, the upsweep is persistent. It has been recorded seasonally since 1991, though its intensity has decreased over the years. Scientists believe it likely comes from underwater volcanic activity or hydrothermal vents, but the exact source has never been pinpointed. The sound varies with the seasons, which suggests environmental factors influence whatever creates it. Yet no specific vent or volcano has been definitively identified as the cause. Then there is the Julia sound, recorded in 1999. It lasted about 15 seconds and was loud enough to be detected across the eastern Pacific. Its signature was unlike any known marine animal or geological process at the time. Later analysis suggested it, too, might be related to iceberg movements, particularly icebergs grounding on the seafloor or breaking apart. But as with the bloop, this remains an inference based on similarity, not direct observation. Perhaps most puzzling is a phenomenon known as the slowdown. First recorded in 1997, it consists of a long, descending frequency that lasts about 7 minutes. It has been detected multiple times, always in the same general area of the South Pacific. The sound's gradual decrease in frequency gives it an eerie, almost mournful quality. Scientists suspect it, too, comes from ice-related events, possibly large icebergs running aground or fracturing. But the exact mechanism and source remain uncertain. These sounds remind us how little we know about the ocean's depths. Even with modern technology, we hear things we cannot see, cannot locate, and cannot fully explain. The deep ocean is a world of pressures and temperatures that challenge our instruments and our understanding. It is possible that some of these sounds come from geological processes we have not yet documented. It is also possible that there are biological sources we have not discovered, creatures living in parts of the ocean we have never reached. The ocean holds more than mysteries of sound. It holds entire ecosystems we have barely begun to catalog, species that live without sunlight, feeding on chemicals from the Earth's interior. In such a world, surprises should be expected. We move now from the ocean's depths to the skies above, where light itself becomes a puzzle. Part 2. Lights that defy explanation. The sky has always held mysteries, but some lights refuse to fit into our understanding. They appear without warning, move in ways that seem impossible, and vanish before we can study them. Some have been witnessed by thousands. Others appear only in remote places, seen by a handful of observers. Science has explained many atmospheric phenomena, from auroras to ball lightning, but a few remain stubbornly unexplained. One of the most documented of these is the Hessdalen lights, observed in a remote valley in central Norway. Since at least the 1930s, residents of the Hessdalen Valley have reported seeing bright, floating lights that appear in the sky, sometimes hovering for more than an hour. The lights vary in color, from white to yellow to red. They move slowly, sometimes darting quickly, and occasionally split into multiple lights. In the early 1980s, sightings became so frequent that scientists established a permanent monitoring station in the valley. They equipped it with cameras, radar, and spectrum analyzers. The research team has recorded hundreds of events. They have captured the lights on film and video, measured their electromagnetic signatures, and tracked their movements. The lights appear to be real physical phenomena, not optical illusions or misidentifications. They emit light across multiple wavelengths, and radar sometimes detects them as solid objects. Yet their origin remains unknown. Several hypotheses have been proposed. Some researchers suggest the lights result from piezoelectric effects, where tectonic strain in the valley's bedrock generates electrical charges that ionize the air. Others propose they are a form of plasma, perhaps created by the interaction of gases seeping from the ground with the valley's unique geology. A third hypothesis involves combustion of hydrogen and other gases released from the Earth. None of these explanations fully accounts for all observed characteristics. The lights sometimes appear in clear weather, sometimes in fog. They vary in brightness, size, and duration in ways that don't match simple geological or chemical models. The Hessdalen lights are not ball lightning, though they share some features. Ball lightning typically lasts only seconds and appears during thunderstorms. The Hessdalen lights can appear in calm weather and persist far longer. They remain one of the best documented unexplained light phenomena in the world, observed and recorded continuously for decades, yet still not understood. Across the world, other lights perplex observers. In Marfa, Texas, mysterious lights have been reported since the 19th century. They appear in the desert near Route 67, typically as glowing orbs that move, split, and change color. Locals and visitors have watched them for generations. Some sightings are likely distant car headlights refracted through atmospheric layers, but not all can be explained this way. Reports date back to before automobiles existed. Some researchers propose the lights result from piezoelectric effects in the quartz-rich rocks of the area, similar to one hypothesis for Hessdalen. Others suggest atmospheric reflections of lights from the nearby town of Marfa or from distant highways. Yet the lights were reported long before electric lighting existed in the region. In Australia, the Min Min lights have been part of Aboriginal lore for centuries and have been witnessed by numerous settlers and travelers. These lights appear in the outback, usually as a pale glow that follows travelers for miles. The lights seem to float just above the horizon and sometimes appear to chase or retreat from observers. Scientific investigation suggests some Min Min sightings may be caused by temperature inversions in the atmosphere. Layers of air at different temperatures can act like a lens, bending light from distant sources and making them appear much closer. This phenomenon, called a fata morgana, can create the illusion of a floating light. However, this explanation does not account for all reported characteristics, particularly the light's apparent ability to follow observers or move in response to their actions. Then there are the Naga fireballs, seen annually on the Mekong River in Thailand and Laos. Each October, glowing orbs rise from the river's surface, ascending silently into the night sky before disappearing. Thousands of people gather each year to watch this phenomenon. The orbs are reddish and vary in size from small sparks to basketball-sized spheres. Some years, only a few appear. Other years, hundreds rise from the water. Local tradition attributes them to a mythical serpent, but scientists have sought natural explanations. One hypothesis involves methane or other gases bubbling up from the riverbed and igniting upon contact with air. Decomposing organic matter in the river could produce such gases. However, spontaneous ignition of methane in open air is rare, and the phenomenon's regularity, occurring most intensely around the same time each year, is difficult to explain through random gas emissions. These lights, from Norway to Texas to Australia to Southeast Asia, share common features. They are real, observed by multiple credible witnesses, sometimes recorded on instruments. They behave in ways that challenge simple explanations. They often occur in specific locations, suggesting local geological or atmospheric factors play a role. Yet despite years of study, none has been conclusively explained. They remind us that the atmosphere, like the ocean, still holds phenomena we do not fully understand. Our planet is not completely known. There are processes occurring in the spaces between Earth and sky that science has not yet captured in its frameworks. These lights are not supernatural, but they are, so far, unexplained. They invite patience and curiosity, and they remind us that mystery is not the absence of knowledge but the presence of something still waiting to be understood. Part 3. A persistent hum. There is a sound that some people hear and others do not. It is low, persistent, and maddening to those who experience it. They describe it as a hum, like a distant diesel engine idling, or the rumble of heavy machinery that never stops. It is loudest indoors, particularly at night, and it does not go away. Some hear it constantly. For them, it disrupts sleep, concentration, and peace. They search for the source, checking appliances, generators, and industrial facilities, but find nothing. The sound seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. This is the hum, and it has been reported in locations around the world. The most famous case is the Taos hum, first widely reported in the early 1990s in Taos, New Mexico. Residents began complaining of a persistent low-frequency noise that no recording equipment could detect. Surveys found that about 2% of the town's population could hear it. Those affected described it as a low thrumming or humming sound, sometimes accompanied by vibrations. It was more noticeable in quiet environments and seemed to intensify at night. The phenomenon attracted scientific attention. Researchers from universities and government agencies came to Taos to investigate. They conducted acoustic surveys, checked for industrial sources, and interviewed those who heard the hum. They found no measurable sound that corresponded to the reports. Several hypotheses emerged. One suggested the hum resulted from very low-frequency sound waves, below the normal range of human hearing, that some individuals could detect through bone conduction or other mechanisms. Another proposed electromagnetic radiation from military installations or power lines might stimulate the auditory system in sensitive individuals. A third considered tinnitus, a condition where people hear sounds generated by their own auditory system. But tinnitus typically presents as ringing or buzzing, not a low hum, and it usually varies in character. The Taos hum, by contrast, was consistently described the same way by different people. Taos is not unique. Similar phenomena have been reported in Bristol, England, where the Bristol hum has affected residents since the 1970s. In Largs, Scotland, people reported a hum that persisted for years. In Windsor, Ontario, residents have complained of a low-frequency noise that some attribute to industrial activity on the American side of the Detroit River, though this has never been confirmed. In Bondi, Australia, a hum troubled residents until it was eventually traced to a specific piece of equipment in a nearby facility. But in most cases, no source is ever found. Research into the hum has produced intriguing findings. Studies suggest that only a small percentage of the population can hear it, typically between 2 and 10%. Those who can hear it tend to be middle-aged or older, though younger people occasionally report it. There appears to be no correlation with hearing ability in the normal frequency range. Some people with excellent hearing cannot detect the hum, while others with partial hearing loss can. This has led researchers to consider whether the hum might not be an external sound at all, but rather a phenomenon generated within the auditory system of certain individuals, possibly triggered by environmental factors. One compelling hypothesis involves otoacoustic emissions, sounds generated by the inner ear itself. The human ear does not merely receive sound, it also produces it. Tiny hair cells in the cochlea can vibrate spontaneously, creating sounds that can sometimes be detected with sensitive microphones placed in the ear canal. Most people never consciously hear these sounds, but under certain conditions, perhaps involving stress, environmental factors, or individual physiology, they might become perceptible. If the hum were an otoacoustic emission or a similar internal phenomenon, it would explain why it cannot be recorded externally and why only some people hear it. Another hypothesis focuses on very low-frequency sound, called infrasound, which exists below 20 Hz, beneath the threshold of normal human hearing. Infrasound can travel long distances and penetrate buildings. It is produced by natural sources like ocean waves, wind, and geological activity, and by human sources like industrial machinery and traffic. Some individuals may be more sensitive to infrasound than others. Research has shown that exposure to infrasound can cause feelings of unease, vibrations in the chest, and auditory sensations. It is possible that people who hear the hum are detecting infrasound that others cannot perceive. Yet this explanation has limitations. Infrasound can be measured with appropriate equipment, and in many cases of the hum, no infrasound has been detected at levels that would explain the reports. This suggests either that the measurements were not sensitive enough, or that the hum is not caused by infrasound. The mystery persists because the phenomenon is subjective. It exists in the experience of those who hear it, but it leaves no trace that science can easily measure. This does not mean it is imagined. The distress it causes is real. The consistency of descriptions across different locations and populations suggests a common underlying cause. But what that cause might be remains uncertain. The hum is a reminder that human perception is complex, that the boundary between external stimulus and internal experience is not always clear, and that some mysteries reside not just in the world around us, but in the workings of our own senses. From sounds we cannot locate, we turn to objects we cannot identify. Part 4. The Antikythera Mechanism. In the spring of 1900, a group of Greek sponge divers sought shelter from a storm near the small island of Antikythera, between Crete and mainland Greece. When the weather cleared, they dove in the surrounding waters and discovered an ancient shipwreck lying on the seabed at a depth of about 150 feet. The wreck was a Roman cargo vessel that had sunk more than 2,000 years earlier. Among the salvaged items, bronze and marble statues, pottery, jewelry, and coins, was a corroded lump of bronze and wood that appeared unremarkable. It was nearly overlooked. Only when it dried and split apart did anyone notice the gears inside. This object became known as the Antikythera mechanism. For decades after its discovery, It sat in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, its significance barely recognized. Early examinations revealed it contained interlocking gears, but the complexity of the mechanism was not understood until the 1950s, when a physicist named Derek de Solla Price began studying it in detail. Using X-ray imaging, Price discovered that the mechanism was far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. It contained at least 30 bronze gears arranged in a complex system. The craftsmanship was extraordinarily precise. The geared teeth were cut with remarkable accuracy, and the device incorporated differential gearing, a technology that would not reappear in European machines until the 16th century. Price concluded that the Antikythera mechanism was an ancient analog computer designed to calculate astronomical positions. It could predict the movements of the sun, moon, and planets, display the phases of the moon, and even forecast eclipses. The device was housed in a wooden box about the size of a shoebox, with dials on the front and back. Users could turn a crank, and the gears would rotate to show the positions of celestial bodies on specific dates. Inscriptions on the mechanism, written in ancient Greek, provided instructions for its use and described astronomical phenomena. Further research using advanced imaging techniques, including computed tomography scans, has revealed even more detail. The mechanism tracked the cycles of the ancient Olympic Games. It incorporated a lunar calendar and adjusted for the irregular orbit of the moon using a pin-and-slot device that varied the speed of rotation, an ingenious solution to a complex astronomical problem. It represented the cosmos according to ancient Greek understanding, with the Earth at the center and the sun, moon, and planets moving in their orbits. The mechanism's creator understood astronomy, mathematics, and engineering at a level that seems almost impossible for the period. The question that haunts researchers is not just how the mechanism was made, but why no other examples have been found. Ancient texts mention devices created by famous inventors. Archimedes, who lived in the 3rd century before the Common Era, was said to have constructed spheres that showed the movements of the heavenly bodies. Cicero, the Roman orator, wrote of seeing such a device. But no physical examples have survived except the Antikythera mechanism. If such technology existed, why did it not spread? Why do we not find similar devices in other ancient sites? One possibility is that these mechanisms were rare, expensive, and highly specialized, created by a small number of skilled craftsmen for wealthy patrons. They may have been made of valuable materials, bronze and precious metals, which were melted down and reused in later periods. Shipwrecks and catastrophes may have destroyed most examples. The Antikythera mechanism survived only because it sank to the seabed, where it was protected from recycling and corrosion by sediment and the specific chemistry of that underwater environment. Another possibility is that the knowledge required to build such devices was never widely disseminated. It may have been held by a few individuals or a single school of thought, and when those individuals died or that school declined, the knowledge was lost. The fall of the Roman Empire and the subsequent centuries saw the loss of much ancient knowledge. Libraries burned, manuscripts were destroyed, and technical skills were forgotten. By the early medieval period, European technology had regressed in many ways from the heights of the classical era. The Antikythera mechanism represents a level of technological sophistication that would not be matched in Europe until the development of mechanical clocks in the 14th century. This thousand-year gap is difficult to explain. It suggests that technological progress is not linear, that knowledge can be lost as easily as it is gained, and that civilizations can possess capabilities that seem anachronistic when viewed from the perspective of their surrounding centuries. The mechanism also raises questions about what else might have been lost. If ancient craftsmen could build such a device, what other technologies did they possess that we know nothing about? Were there other complex machines now vanished that served different purposes? The historical record is incomplete. We have fragments of texts, scattered artifacts, and ruins, but vast stretches of human activity remain undocumented. The Antikythera mechanism survived by accident. How many other marvels did not? Today, the mechanism is recognized as one of the most important archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. It has been studied, reconstructed, and celebrated. Museums display replicas, and documentaries explore its mysteries. Yet for all we have learned, key questions remain. Who built it? Where was it made? Was it unique, or one of many? We may never know. The device stands as a testament to the ingenuity of ancient minds and a reminder that history is full of surprises, that our ancestors were capable of achievements we are only beginning to appreciate, and that the past is not a simple progression from ignorance to knowledge but a complex tapestry of brilliance and loss. Part 5. The Voynich Manuscript. In a library at Yale University, there rests a book that no one can read. It is written in a script that does not match any known language. It contains illustrations of plants that do not exist, astronomical diagrams that make no conventional sense, and drawings of human figures in scenes that defy interpretation. The book is called the Voynich Manuscript, named after Wilfrid Voynich, the Polish book dealer who purchased it in 1912. But the manuscript itself is much older, dating to the early 15th century based on radiocarbon analysis of its vellum pages. For more than a century, cryptographers, linguists, historians, and computer scientists have attempted to decode it. All have failed. The manuscript is small, roughly 6 inches by 9 inches, and contains about 240 pages, though some are missing. It is written in an unknown alphabet consisting of about 20 to 30 distinct characters, depending on how you count variations. The script flows smoothly, with consistent letter formations and regular spacing, suggesting it was written by someone fluent in the system. The text is divided into sections, each apparently dealing with different subjects based on the illustrations. There is a botanical section with drawings of plants, a pharmaceutical section showing vessels and plant parts, an astronomical section with circular diagrams and zodiac symbols, a biological section with small human figures bathing in green liquid, and a cosmological section with circular and radial charts. The plants depicted in the botanical section are perhaps the most puzzling element. They are drawn with care and detail, showing roots, stems, leaves, flowers, and seeds. Yet none of them can be matched to known species. Some resemble real plants in general form but have features that do not occur in nature. A plant might have the leaves of one species and the flowers of another, or it might have an arrangement of parts that is botanically impossible. Experts in medieval herbals have examined the drawings and concluded that they do not represent any plants known to grow in Europe, Asia, or the Americas. Either they are imaginary, or they depict flora that no longer exists, or they are highly stylized representations meant to convey symbolic rather than literal meaning. The astronomical section contains circular diagrams, many divided into segments with text and small illustrations. Some circles contain zodiac symbols, suggesting calendrical or astrological content. Others show radiating patterns with no clear astronomical referent. The biological section shows groups of nude female figures standing or sitting in interconnected pools and tubes filled with green or blue liquid. The meaning is entirely obscure. Some have suggested alchemical symbolism, others reproductive or bathing rituals. Still others have proposed it relates to medieval concepts of health and the humors. None of these interpretations can be verified because the text remains unreadable. Attempts to decode the manuscript have employed every technique available. During World War II, cryptographers who had broken enemy codes turned their attention to the Voynich manuscript and made no progress. In the 1970s, computer analysis of letter frequencies and patterns suggested the text had statistical properties consistent with natural language. Letters appeared with regular frequency distributions, certain combinations occurred more often than others, and word-like units repeated in ways similar to real languages. This argued against the manuscript being simple nonsense or a random hoax. Yet no structure emerged that could be mapped onto any known language family. One hypothesis proposes that the manuscript is written in a constructed language or cipher invented by its author. Medieval scholars sometimes created secret codes to protect knowledge they considered dangerous or valuable. The text might be an enciphered version of Latin or another European language, transformed through substitution, transposition, or some combination of methods. But if so, it is a cipher of extraordinary complexity. No one has successfully reverse-engineered the system. Another hypothesis suggests the text might be a natural language that has since gone extinct or that was spoken by a very small group, never properly documented. But no linguistic features have been identified that link it to any known language family. A more controversial idea holds that the manuscript is an elaborate hoax, created to deceive collectors or patrons. In the Renaissance, there was a market for rare and mysterious books, and a sufficiently skilled forger could have fabricated the manuscript to sell it as an ancient work of secret knowledge. However, the radiocarbon dating of the vellum confirms the pages were made in the early 1400s, and the ink appears consistent with that period. The manuscript also shows signs of genuine use, with worn pages and annotations in later hands. A hoax created in the 15th century would be an impressive undertaking, requiring the forger to invent an entire writing system, create a consistent but undecipherable text of over 30,000 words, and illustrate it with hundreds of detailed drawings. The effort seems disproportionate to any plausible gain. Recent computational approaches using artificial intelligence and machine learning have attempted to find patterns in the text. Some researchers have claimed partial success, identifying what they believe are linguistic structures or proposing that the text is written in a form of abbreviated Latin or coded Hebrew. These claims have not been widely accepted, as they rely on speculative interpretations and do not produce coherent translations. The manuscript continues to resist all efforts at comprehension. What makes the Voynich manuscript so compelling is not just its indecipherability, but the sense that it is trying to communicate something. It is not random. It has structure, repetition, and organization. Someone spent considerable time and effort creating it. The question is why? If it encodes knowledge, what knowledge? If it is a cipher, what is being hidden? If it is a hoax, to what end? The manuscript exists as a physical object. You can hold it, examine it, photograph every page. Yet it remains as mysterious as if it had appeared from nowhere. It is a reminder that meaning is not inherent in symbols, but arises from shared understanding, and when that understanding is absent, even the most carefully crafted communication becomes silent. The Voynich manuscript speaks, but in a language no one remembers, if indeed it was ever known. We leave behind human-made mysteries and turn our gaze upward to phenomena written in the heavens. Part 6. Fast Radio Bursts. In 2007, an astronomer named Duncan Lorimer was reviewing archived data from the Parkes radio telescope in Australia when he noticed something strange. In the data from 2001, there was a spike, a brief pulse of radio waves lasting only a few milliseconds. The pulse was extraordinarily bright and came from outside our galaxy. It had traveled across billions of light-years of space before reaching Earth. The signal was unlike anything seen before. It was too short to be a pulsar, too bright to be background noise, and too distant to come from any known source in our Milky Way. Lorimer published his findings, and the phenomenon became known as a fast radio burst, or FRB. At first, there was skepticism. A single event, seen only in old data, could be an instrumental error or interference from human technology. Radio telescopes pick up signals from satellites, aircraft, and electronic devices. But as more astronomers searched archived data and conducted new observations, more fast radio bursts were found. By 2024, hundreds had been detected. They come from random directions in the sky, from distances ranging from hundreds of millions to billions of light-years away. Most last only a few milliseconds. Some are single bursts, never repeating. Others come from sources that burst repeatedly, sometimes dozens of times. The energy required to produce a fast radio burst is immense. In a few milliseconds, these events release as much energy as the sun emits in several days. To generate such a powerful signal, the source must involve extreme physical conditions. Astronomers have proposed several possibilities. One leading hypothesis involves neutron stars, the collapsed cores of massive stars left behind after supernova explosions. Neutron stars are incredibly dense, with the mass of the Sun compressed into a sphere only about 12 miles across. Some neutron stars have powerful magnetic fields, trillions of times stronger than Earth's. These are called magnetars. The intense magnetic fields can cause violent eruptions on the star's surface, releasing bursts of energy across the electromagnetic spectrum, including radio waves. Observations of repeating fast radio bursts have provided support for the magnetar hypothesis. In 2020, a fast radio burst was detected coming from within our own galaxy, originating from a known magnetar called R 1935+2154. This was the first time a fast radio burst had been linked to a specific object. The burst was much weaker than those detected from distant galaxies, but when scaled for distance, it matched the profile of extragalactic bursts. This strongly suggested that at least some fast radio bursts are produced by magnetars. But not all fast radio bursts may have the same origin. The diversity in their properties, duration, brightness, and whether they repeat suggests there may be multiple mechanisms at work. Another hypothesis involves cataclysmic events, such as the collision of neutron stars or the collapse of a massive star into a black hole. These events are extremely violent and could produce brief, intense bursts of radiation. However, such events are typically one-time occurrences, which would explain single bursts but not repeating ones. Some researchers have proposed more exotic explanations, including emissions from evaporating black holes or even, speculatively, signals from advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. The latter idea is not taken seriously by most scientists, as there is no evidence to suggest an artificial origin, and natural astrophysical processes are sufficient to account for the observations. What makes fast radio bursts particularly intriguing is what they reveal about the universe between us and their sources. As radio waves travel through space, they interact with matter. Electrons in the intergalactic medium cause different frequencies of radio waves to travel at slightly different speeds, a phenomenon called dispersion. By measuring the dispersion of a fast radio burst, astronomers can estimate how much matter it passed through and thus how far it traveled. This makes fast radio bursts useful probes of the structure of the universe, revealing gas and plasma that would otherwise be invisible. Some fast radio bursts show unusual properties that remain unexplained. A few have been detected with periodic patterns, repeating at regular intervals. One source, designated FRB 180916, bursts in a 16-day cycle, active for a few days and then silent for the rest of the cycle. This periodicity suggests the source is part of a binary system, perhaps a magnetar orbiting another star, with the bursts only visible when the magnetar is at certain points in its orbit. But this is speculative. The precise mechanism that produces the bursts, and why they follow such a schedule, is not fully understood. Another mystery is the polarization of the radio waves. Some fast radio bursts are highly polarized, meaning the electromagnetic waves oscillate in a particular direction. This provides clues about the magnetic fields near the source. In some cases, the polarization changes between bursts from the same source, suggesting the environment around the source is dynamic, perhaps with material being ejected or magnetic field lines reconfiguring. These details are pieces of a puzzle that astronomers are still assembling. Fast radio bursts were unknown until recently, not because they are rare, but because we lacked the technology and the awareness to detect them. It is estimated that thousands occur across the sky every day, most too faint or too brief to be noticed. As radio telescopes become more sensitive and survey larger portions of the sky, the catalog of fast radio bursts grows. Each new detection adds to our understanding, but also raises new questions. Why do some sources repeat while others do not? What determines the energy and duration of each burst? Are there different classes of sources, or variations on a common theme? The universe is full of violent, energetic phenomena, and fast radio bursts are among the most extreme we have discovered. They are messages from the cosmos, written in radio waves, crossing billions of years and trillions of miles to reach us. We are only beginning to learn how to read them. Part 7. The Placebo Effect. There is a phenomenon in medicine that should not work, yet does. It has been documented thousands of times in clinical trials and medical practice. Patients are given inert substances, pills containing nothing but sugar or starch, injections of saline, or even fake surgeries where incisions are made but no actual procedure is performed. They are told these treatments will help them, and in many cases they do. Symptoms improve, pain decreases, function returns. This is the placebo effect, and despite decades of research, we do not fully understand how or why it happens. The word placebo comes from Latin, meaning, "I shall please." It was first used in a medical context in the 18th century to describe treatments given more to please the patient than to cure disease. Early physicians recognized that patients often improved simply because they believed they were receiving effective treatment. For a long time, the placebo effect was dismissed as mere imagination, a psychological trick with no real physiological impact. But modern research has shown this view is incorrect. The placebo effect produces measurable changes in the body, changes that can be detected in brain scans, blood tests, and other objective measures. One of the most studied aspects of the placebo effect is its impact on pain. When people are given a placebo and told it is a painkiller, many report genuine reductions in pain. Brain imaging studies show that this is not simply a change in how they think about the pain. Activity in pain-processing regions of the brain actually decreases. The body releases endorphins, natural opioid-like chemicals that reduce pain signals. This process is triggered by expectation, by the belief that relief is coming. The mind, in effect, activates the body's own pain control systems. The strength of the placebo effect varies depending on several factors. The way a treatment is presented matters. A pill described as a powerful new medication produces a stronger effect than one described as mild or experimental. Injections tend to produce stronger placebo effects than pills, perhaps because they seem more serious or invasive. Larger pills work better than smaller ones. Brand-name pills outperform generic ones, even when both are placebos. The color of the pill can even make a difference. Blue pills are more effective as sedatives, while red and orange pills work better as stimulants. These findings suggest that the placebo effect is shaped by cultural expectations and learned associations about what medicine should look like and how it should work. The relationship between doctor and patient also influences the effect. Patients who trust their doctors and feel cared for tend to experience stronger placebo responses. The ritual of the medical encounter, the examination, the diagnosis, the prescription, all contribute to the expectation that healing will occur. Some researchers have proposed that the placebo effect is partly a conditioned response, similar to Pavlov's dog's learning to salivate at the sound of a bell. If we have repeatedly experienced relief after taking medication, our bodies may begin to produce that relief in response to the act of taking any pill, even an inert one. But the placebo effect is not purely psychological in the sense of being imagined or unreal. It produces concrete physiological changes. Studies have shown that placebos can affect immune function, hormone levels, and even the progression of certain diseases. In patients with Parkinson's disease, a condition caused by the loss of dopamine-producing cells in the brain, placebos can trigger the release of dopamine, temporarily improving symptoms. This is remarkable because it shows the brain can compensate, at least briefly, for structural damage through expectation and belief. There are limits, of course. Placebos do not cure infections or shrink tumors. They work best for conditions where symptoms are mediated by the brain, such as pain, nausea, fatigue, and mood. They are less effective for objective, measurable outcomes like blood pressure or cholesterol levels, though even these can show modest placebo effects. The mechanism is not fully understood. Expectation clearly plays a role, but expectation alone does not explain everything. Some placebo effects occur even when patients are told they are receiving a placebo. In these open-label placebo studies, participants know the pill contains no active ingredient, yet they still experience improvement. This suggests that the ritual of treatment, the act of taking medicine, and perhaps even unconscious conditioning contribute to the effect independently of conscious belief. One of the most dramatic demonstrations of the placebo effect comes from studies of placebo surgery. In these experiments, patients with conditions like knee pain are randomly assigned to receive either real surgery or a sham procedure where incisions are made but no actual repair is performed. In several such studies, patients who received the sham surgery reported improvements similar to those who received the real operation. This raises profound questions about the mechanisms of healing and the role of belief in recovery. It also presents ethical challenges. If some surgeries are no more effective than placebos, should they continue to be performed? How do we balance the real benefits of belief and expectation with the risks and costs of invasive procedures? The placebo effect also has a darker counterpart, the nocebo effect, where negative expectations lead to negative outcomes. If people are told a treatment will cause side effects, they are more likely to experience them even if the treatment is inert. Patients warned that a pill may cause nausea, headache, or drowsiness often report these symptoms when given a placebo. This suggests that expectation can harm as well as heal. The nocebo effect is one reason why reading long lists of potential side effects can sometimes make people feel worse. It also complicates medical communication. Doctors must balance informed consent, telling patients about possible risks, with the knowledge that mentioning those risks may increase their likelihood. The placebo effect challenges our understanding of the relationship between mind and body. It demonstrates that these are not separate entities but deeply interconnected systems. The brain does not simply perceive the body's state, it actively regulates it. thoughts and beliefs can trigger biological processes. This does not mean that illness is all in the mind or that people can simply think themselves well. But it does mean that psychological and social factors play a real role in health and disease, a role that is often underestimated in modern medicine. The placebo effect is not a nuisance to be controlled for in clinical trials, though it is that too. It is a window into the self-healing capacities of the human organism, capacities we are only beginning to understand. It reminds us that healing is a complex process, involving not just drugs and surgeries, but also hope, trust, and the meanings we attach to our treatments and our suffering. We turn now from the mysteries of the mind to mysteries of the body and of life itself. Part 8. The Immortal Jellyfish. Death is supposed to be final. Every organism on Earth ages, declines, and eventually ceases to function. Cells accumulate damage, organs fail, and the processes of life wind down. This is the natural order. But there is a creature that appears to defy it, a jellyfish that can reverse its aging process and theoretically live forever. It is called Turritopsis dohrnii, and scientists refer to it as the immortal jellyfish. Turritopsis dohrnii is small, only about 4 to 5 millimeters in diameter, roughly the size of a pinky fingernail. It is transparent, with a bell-shaped body and trailing tentacles. It lives in oceans around the world, drifting with the currents and feeding on tiny plankton. In most respects, it is unremarkable. But this jellyfish possesses a capability that no other known animal has. When faced with environmental stress, physical injury, or simply old age, it can transform itself back into a juvenile state, essentially resetting its biological clock. The life cycle of a jellyfish normally proceeds in one direction. It begins as a fertilized egg that develops into a larva, which settles on the seafloor and becomes a polyp, a stationary tube-like form. The polyp eventually buds off tiny jellyfish, called medusae, which grow into adults, reproduce, and then die. But Turritopsis dohrnii can reverse this process. An adult medusa can revert to the polyp stage. Its bell-shaped body collapses, its tentacles retract, and its cells undergo a transformation called transdifferentiation, where specialized cells convert into different types of cells. Muscle cells can become nerve cells, or reproductive cells can become digestive cells. The jellyfish essentially reorganizes itself at the cellular level, rebuilding its body from the inside out. This process was first documented in the 1990s by researchers studying jellyfish in laboratory settings. They observed that when Turritopsis dohrnii was stressed, starved, or injured, instead of dying, it would sink to the bottom of the container and transform into a blob of tissue. Over the course of several days, this blob would develop into a polyp. The polyp would then, in time, produce new medusae genetically identical to the original. The jellyfish had not died. It had started over. The implications are staggering. In theory, a single Turritopsis dohrnii could cycle through this process indefinitely, aging and then rejuvenating over and over. It could be biologically immortal, not in the sense that it cannot be killed, predators, disease, and accidents can still destroy it, but in the sense that it does not have a programmed lifespan. It does not age in the way other animals do. There is no internal clock counting down to its death. Scientists have been fascinated by the mechanism behind this transformation. Transdifferentiation is rare in the animal kingdom. Most cells in adult organisms are locked into their specific roles. A skin cell remains a skin cell, a heart cell remains a heart cell. The ability to reprogram cells is largely lost after embryonic development. But Turritopsis dohrnii retains this plasticity throughout its life. Researchers have been studying the genetic and molecular pathways that allow this. They have found that certain genes involved in cell development and differentiation are activated during the transformation. The jellyfish appears to reactivate developmental programs that are normally shut off in adults. Understanding this process could have profound implications for human medicine. Aging in humans is associated with the gradual loss of cellular function and the accumulation of damage that cells cannot repair. If we could understand how Turritopsis dohrnii reverses aging at the cellular level, it might be possible to develop therapies that rejuvenate damaged tissues or slow the aging process. This is, of course, speculative and faces enormous scientific and ethical challenges. Humans are vastly more complex than jellyfish. Our bodies contain trillions of cells organized into intricate systems. The aging process in humans involves not just cellular decline but also changes in the immune system, the accumulation of mutations, and the breakdown of regulatory mechanisms. Simply reversing cellular aging might not be enough to prevent death, and it could have unintended consequences, such as increasing the risk of cancer. Still, the existence of Turritopsis dohrnii challenges assumptions about the inevitability of aging and death. It demonstrates that biological immortality is not a fantasy but a reality, at least for some organisms. Other creatures also exhibit remarkable longevity or resistance to aging. The Greenland shark can live for over 400 years. Certain species of clams have been found to be over 500 years old. Naked mole rats show almost no signs of aging for most of their 30-year lifespan and have extraordinarily low rates of cancer. Tardigrades, microscopic animals also known as water bears, can survive extreme conditions by entering a state of suspended animation, enduring temperatures near absolute zero, the vacuum of space, and radiation levels that would kill most other organisms. These examples show that nature has evolved multiple strategies for extending life and surviving adversity. What remains unclear is whether Turritopsis dohrnii actually achieves immortality in the wild. Laboratory conditions are controlled and safe. In the ocean, the jellyfish face predators, disease, and environmental hazards. No one has tracked an individual jellyfish through multiple cycles of aging and rejuvenation in its natural habitat. It is possible that the process occurs regularly, or it may be a last resort triggered only under extreme stress. The jellyfish may cycle a few times and then succumb to predation or other causes before completing many cycles. The theoretical immortality may not translate into practical immortality. Even so, the immortal jellyfish stands as a symbol of nature's creativity and the surprising solutions evolution can produce. It reminds us that the rules we assume govern life are not absolute. What seems impossible, reversal of aging, transformation of cell types, escape from death, can be achieved through biological mechanisms we are only beginning to comprehend. The immortal jellyfish is small, fragile, and easily overlooked, yet it may hold clues to some of the deepest questions we ask about life, aging, and the limits of what living things can do. It drifts through the ocean, transparent and silent, carrying within its tiny body a secret that humanity has sought for millennia. Part 9. The Wow Signal. On the night of August 15, 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio was scanning the sky as part of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, known as SETI. The telescope was operated by Ohio State University and had been searching for unusual radio signals from space for several years. Most of the time, it detected only background noise, the random hiss of radiation from distant stars and galaxies. But on that night, something different appeared. For 72 seconds, the telescope received a strong, narrowband radio signal coming from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. The signal was unlike anything the telescope had recorded before. A few days later, a volunteer astronomer named Jerry Emin was reviewing the computer printouts of the telescope's data. When he saw the signal, he was so struck by its unusual characteristics that he circled it on the printout and wrote a single word in the margin: "Wow." The signal became known as the Wow Signal, and it remains one of the most intriguing and unexplained detections in the history of SETI. The Wow Signal had several features that made it remarkable. First, it was narrowband, meaning it occupied a very specific frequency rather than being spread across a wide range. Natural cosmic sources, like stars and gas clouds, tend to produce broad-spectrum noise. A narrowband signal suggests a source that is concentrated and specific, more like a transmission than random radiation. Second, the signal was strong. It was 30 times louder than the background noise, a level of intensity that made it stand out dramatically. Third, it occurred at a frequency close to 1420 MHz, a frequency associated with hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. This frequency is considered significant in SETI because any technologically advanced civilization might choose to broadcast at this wavelength, knowing that other civilizations would be listening there. The signal's duration was 72 seconds, which corresponds to the amount of time the telescope's beam remained pointed at that particular spot in the sky as the Earth rotated. This suggested the signal was coming from a fixed point in space, not from a satellite, aircraft, or other moving source near Earth. The signal rose in intensity, peaked, and then faded in a pattern consistent with a source that was passing through the telescope's field of view. Astronomers were excited but cautious. The first step was to search for the signal again. The telescope was pointed back at the same region of the sky repeatedly over the following days, weeks, and months. Nothing was detected. The signal did not repeat. Other telescopes around the world were also directed to the location, but none picked up anything unusual. Over the decades since, astronomers have continued to search that area of the sky with increasingly sensitive equipment. The signal has never reappeared. The failure to detect the signal again is both frustrating and significant. If the signal had been a deliberate transmission from an extraterrestrial civilization, it might have been a brief, one-time broadcast, or it might be part of a cycle that we have not yet observed again. Alternatively, it could have been some kind of natural phenomenon that we do not understand, or it could have been interference from a human-made source that happened to mimic the characteristics of an extraterrestrial signal. Over the years, researchers have proposed several explanations. One hypothesis is that the signal was caused by a passing comet. In 2017, an astronomer suggested that two comets were in the vicinity of the signal's origin point in 1977. Comets release clouds of gas, including hydrogen, as they approach the Sun. This hydrogen could emit radiation at the 1420 MHz frequency. However, other researchers have disputed this explanation. The signal's characteristics, particularly its narrow bandwidth and intensity, do not match what would be expected from a comet's diffuse hydrogen cloud. Comets produce broad, weak emissions, not the sharp, strong signal that was observed. Another possibility is terrestrial interference. Radio telescopes are sensitive instruments that can pick up signals from satellites, military radar, and other human technology. Despite efforts to filter out such interference, it is possible that a signal from Earth bounced off space debris or was reflected in some way to appear as though it came from deep space. However, the signal's frequency and the way it rose and fell as the telescope tracked across the sky make this explanation less likely. Terrestrial sources tend to produce signals that behave differently. Some have suggested the signal could have been a natural astrophysical phenomenon that we have not yet identified. The universe is full of energetic processes, from pulsars to magnet Rs to phenomena we have not yet discovered. It is conceivable that some rare event produced a brief, narrow-band radio burst that happened to be pointed in our direction. But no known natural process produces a signal quite like the wow signal. This does not mean such a process does not exist, only that we have not found it. The most tantalizing possibility, and the one that captures the imagination, is that the wow signal was a transmission from an extraterrestrial intelligence. If so, it would be the only credible candidate for such a signal ever detected. But without repetition, without additional data, there is no way to confirm this. Science requires reproducibility. A single, unrepeated event cannot be studied, verified, or understood with certainty. The wow signal exists in a frustrating space, too compelling to dismiss, too fleeting to confirm. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence continues. Modern SETI efforts use more sensitive telescopes, scan broader ranges of frequencies, and monitor larger portions of the sky. Projects like Breakthrough Listen have dedicated significant resources to the search, analyzing petabytes of data from radio and optical telescopes. So far, no signal like the wow signal has been detected again. This raises questions about how common or rare such signals might be. If extraterrestrial civilizations are broadcasting, perhaps they do so infrequently, or their transmissions are highly directional beams that sweep past us briefly and then move on. Or perhaps intelligent civilizations are rare, or short-lived, or choose not to broadcast at all. The wow signal also raises questions about what we would do if we detected such a signal again. There are protocols in place for verifying and announcing the discovery of extraterrestrial intelligence, but the reality of such a detection would be complex. Confirming the signal's origin would require international cooperation and verification by multiple independent observatories. Understanding the signal, if it contained information, would be an even greater challenge. We have no shared language, no common frame of reference. Even a simple message could take years or decades to decode, if it could be decoded at all. For now, the WOW signal remains a mystery. It is a 72-second whisper from the cosmos, heard once and never again. It may have been a glitch, a comet, an unknown natural phenomenon, or a message from another world. We do not know, and we may never know. It stands as a reminder of how little we understand about the universe and our place in it. It is also a reminder of the vastness of space and the loneliness of our search. We send our signals into the void and listen for replies, hoping that somewhere, someone is listening back. The WOW signal suggests that perhaps, just once, we heard something. Whether it was a greeting or just an echo, we are still trying to understand. From the search for life beyond Earth, we return to our own planet and a mystery beneath our feet. Part 10. The Hutchison Effect. In the early 1980s, a Canadian inventor named John Hutchison claimed to have discovered a phenomenon that defied the known laws of physics. He reported that by using a combination of electromagnetic equipment, including Tesla coils, high-voltage generators, and radio frequency devices, he could produce effects that seemed impossible. Objects in his laboratory would levitate, metals would spontaneously fuse together, materials would become transparent or would shatter without being touched, and some objects would reportedly disappear and reappear. He called this the Hutchison effect, and he documented it with photographs and videotapes. The videos showed what appeared to be remarkable events. A heavy cannonball lifted off the floor and hovered in midair. A steel bar bent without any visible force applied to it. Pieces of metal embedded themselves in other materials. Wood and metal fused together in ways that seemed to violate conventional understanding. Hutchison claimed these effects were the result of interactions between electromagnetic fields, zero-point energy, and forces that mainstream science did not recognize or understand. He presented his findings to scientists, military officials, and the media, hoping to gain support for further research. The response was mixed. Some were intrigued and wanted to investigate further. Others were deeply skeptical. The problem was that Hutchison's results could not be reliably reproduced. He himself reported difficulty in recreating the effects consistently. Sometimes they would occur, sometimes they would not. He attributed this to the complexity of the setup and the sensitivity of the equipment to slight variations in configuration, power levels, and environmental conditions. Critics argued that the lack of reproducibility suggested the effects were not real, or that they were the result of trickery, either intentional or unintentional. Efforts were made to study the Hutchison effect under controlled conditions. Researchers visited his laboratory, examined his equipment, and attempted to witness the phenomena firsthand. Some reported seeing unusual effects, though they could not explain them. Others saw nothing and concluded that the videos had been faked, perhaps using hidden wires, magnets, camera tricks, or post-production editing. The debate became contentious. Hutchison maintained that the effects were genuine and that the difficulty in reproducing them was due to the subtlety and complexity of the electromagnetic interactions involved. Skeptics pointed to the lack of a theoretical framework, the absence of peer-reviewed publications, and the failure of independent researchers to replicate the results. From a physics standpoint, the Hutchison effect, as described, is problematic. Levitation of heavy objects without visible support would require forces that overcome gravity. Electromagnetic fields can produce such forces, but they require specific configurations, such as magnetic materials and strong gradients. The objects Hutchison claimed levitated were often non-magnetic, like wood or cannonballs, which should not respond to magnetic fields in that way. The fusion of dissimilar materials without heat or pressure also lacks a known mechanism. Metals and wood do not spontaneously bond under normal electromagnetic exposure. These phenomena, if real, would require either unknown physics or a misunderstanding of what was actually occurring. One possibility is that some of the observed effects were genuine but misinterpreted. High-voltage electrical equipment can produce strong electric fields, plasma discharges, and acoustic waves. These can cause unusual behavior in nearby objects. Electric fields can induce charges in objects, causing them to move or vibrate. Acoustic waves, especially at high frequencies, can create pressure differentials that lift or move lightweight items. It is conceivable that some combination of these effects, interacting in complex ways, produced phenomena that appeared strange but were actually explainable through conventional physics, if the exact conditions were understood. Another possibility is that the effects were not genuine in the sense claimed. Video evidence can be misleading. Objects can be suspended on transparent wires, moved by hidden magnets, or manipulated through editing. Without independent verification and the ability to examine the scene from multiple angles under controlled conditions, video alone is insufficient proof. Hutchison did allow some visitors into his laboratory, but the conditions were not controlled scientific experiments. The environment was cluttered, the equipment was complex and non-standard, and observers could not always see all the details of what was happening. Despite the skepticism, the Hutchison effect has retained a following, particularly among those interested in alternative science and fringe physics. Some believe that Hutchison stumbled upon real phenomena that mainstream science is unwilling or unable to acknowledge. They point to the complexity of electromagnetic interactions, the possibility of unknown forces, and historical examples of discoveries that were initially dismissed. Others view the Hutchison effect as a cautionary tale about the importance of reproducibility, peer review, and scientific rigor. In science, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the Hutchison effect has not met that standard. There have been claims that government agencies and military organizations were interested in the Hutchison effect, seeing potential applications in propulsion, materials science, or weaponry. Hutchison himself has stated that his work attracted attention from defense contractors and that some of his equipment was confiscated or examined by authorities. These claims are difficult to verify, as such activities, if they occurred, would likely be classified. There is no public evidence of any government project based on the Hutchison effect, nor any credible reports of the phenomena being weaponized or applied in practical technology. The story of the Hutchison effect highlights the tension between open-mindedness and skepticism. Science must be willing to investigate new ideas and unexpected results, but it must also demand evidence and reproducibility. Anomalies and unexplained observations can lead to genuine discoveries, but they can also lead down dead ends or into deception, intentional or not. The Hutchison effect has not been validated by the scientific community, and most researchers consider it either a misinterpretation of known phenomena or an outright hoax. Yet the story persists, kept alive by videos, anecdotes, and the allure of the impossible. It serves as a reminder that the boundary between science and pseudoscience is not always clear to those outside the scientific process, and that the burden of proof lies with those making extraordinary claims. Until the Hutchison effect can be demonstrated reliably under controlled conditions and explained through a coherent theoretical framework, it remains in the category of unverified claims, intriguing to some, dismissed by most, and unresolved. Part 11. The Tunguska Event. On the morning of June 30, 1908, something exploded over a remote region of Siberia near the Tunguska River. The blast was so powerful it flattened 80 million trees across an area of more than 800 square miles. Witnesses located 40 miles away reported seeing a column of blue light, nearly as bright as the sun, moving across the sky. Moments later, a shock wave threw people off their feet and shattered windows hundreds of miles away. The explosion released energy equivalent to between 10 and 15 megatons of TNT, roughly 1,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Yet when scientists finally reached the site years later, they found no crater. The remoteness of the Tunguska region delayed investigation. The area was inhabited by only a few indigenous Evenki herders, and Russia was in political turmoil. It was not until 1927 that a scientific expedition led by Leonid Kulik reached the site. What they found was both spectacular and puzzling. Trees were knocked down in a radial pattern, all pointing away from a central point. But at that central point, there was no impact crater. Instead, trees remained standing, though they had been stripped of their branches and bark. They stood like scorched telephone poles, pointing upward at the sky. Kulik initially assumed a meteorite had struck the Earth, but the absence of a crater was perplexing. He searched for fragments of the meteorite, expecting to find iron or stones scattered across the landscape. He found none. Later expeditions dug test pits and examined the soil, looking for microscopic particles that might have come from space. They found tiny spheres of melted rock and metal, consistent with an aerial explosion of an extraterrestrial object, but no large fragments. This suggested the object had disintegrated completely before reaching the ground. The most widely accepted explanation today is that a meteor or comet, probably between 50 and 100 meters in diameter, entered the Earth's atmosphere and exploded at an altitude of about 5 to 10 kilometers. The explosion occurred in the air, which explains the lack of a crater. The shock wave from the blast radiated outward and downward, flattening the forest. This type of event is known as an airburst. The object was likely moving at tremendous speed, tens of kilometers per second, and the friction and pressure as it plowed through the atmosphere heated it to extreme temperatures. The heat and stress caused it to fragment and explode. Whether the object was a comet or an asteroid remains uncertain. Comets are composed largely of ice and dust, and they are more fragile than rocky asteroids. A comet would be more likely to disintegrate completely in the atmosphere, leaving little trace. An asteroid, being denser, might leave more fragments. The lack of substantial meteorite material suggests a comet, but the evidence is not conclusive. Some researchers have proposed that the object was a small asteroid that entered the atmosphere at a shallow angle, allowing it to travel farther before exploding. This would account for the horizontal trajectory reported by witnesses. What makes the Tunguska event particularly significant is that it was the largest impact event in recorded human history. Fortunately, it occurred in a sparsely populated area. If the same explosion had happened over a major city, the devastation would have been catastrophic, with hundreds of thousands or even millions of casualties. The event demonstrated that Earth is vulnerable to impacts from space, and that such impacts can occur without warning. It was a wake-up call, though it took many decades for the scientific community and governments to take the threat seriously. Today, astronomers actively search for near-Earth objects, asteroids and comets whose orbits bring them close to our planet. Programs like NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office track these objects and assess the risk they pose. The goal is to detect potential impactors years or decades in advance, giving humanity time to develop strategies to deflect or destroy them. The Tunguska event serves as a reminder of why this work is important. Objects large enough to cause regional or even global catastrophe exist in space, and while the probability of an impact in any given year is low, over long timescales, impacts are inevitable. Some alternative theories have been proposed for the Tunguska event. One suggests it was caused by the explosion of a cloud of natural gas escaping from the Earth. Another proposes it was a small black hole passing through the planet. A few have even speculated it was the crash of an alien spacecraft. None of these ideas are supported by evidence. The gas explosion theory fails to explain the eyewitness accounts of a bright object moving through the sky. The black hole hypothesis is inconsistent with physics, as a black hole passing through Earth would have created an exit event on the opposite side of the planet, which was not observed. The alien spacecraft idea is pure speculation with no supporting data. What remains unexplained are some of the finer details. Why did the object explode at the altitude it did? What exactly was its composition? Why was the explosion so complete that almost no fragments survived? These questions are difficult to answer because we have no direct samples of the object. All we have are the effects it left behind. Scientists have used computer simulations to model the event, testing different sizes, compositions, and entry angles. The simulations can reproduce the overall pattern of destruction, but the exact parameters remain uncertain. The Tunguska event also had subtle environmental effects. Trees that grew after the explosion showed unusual growth patterns in their rings, suggesting changes in the soil or atmosphere. Some studies have reported elevated levels of certain isotopes in the area, which could indicate the object was of extraterrestrial origin. Others have found magnetic anomalies, though their connection to the explosion is debated. These findings add layers to the mystery but do not fundamentally change the conclusion that the event was caused by an airburst of a space object. In the decades since Tunguska, there have been smaller airburst events. In 2013, a meteor exploded over Chelyabinsk, Russia, with the energy of about half a megaton. The shock wave injured over 1,000 people, mostly from broken glass. The Chelyabinsk event was captured on video by hundreds of cameras, providing a wealth of data. It confirmed that airbursts are real, dangerous, and more common than once thought. The Tunguska event was simply the largest such event in modern history. It stands as a testament to the power of the cosmos and the fragility of our position on this small planet. We orbit the sun in a shooting gallery, and every so often, something finds its mark. Tunguska reminds us to look up, to watch the skies, and to remember that the universe is not always gentle. We move now from dangers above to mysteries within the human mind itself. Part 12. Ball lightning. There are phenomena that seem to belong more to myth than to science, yet they are reported consistently enough, by credible enough witnesses, that they cannot be dismissed. One of these is ball lightning, a rare and poorly understood form of lightning that appears as a glowing sphere, floating through the air, passing through walls, and sometimes exploding with destructive force. For centuries, scientists doubted its existence. Eyewitness accounts were attributed to illusions, afterimages from bright lightning flashes, or simply mistakes. But over time, the accumulation of reports, some from trained observers including pilots, meteorologists, and scientists, forced a reconsideration. Ball lightning is real, but we do not fully understand what it is or how it forms. Ball lightning typically appears during thunderstorms, though it has been reported in clear weather and even indoors. Witnesses describe it as a luminous sphere, usually between 10 centimeters and a meter in diameter, though sizes vary. The color ranges from white to yellow, orange, red, or blue. The sphere floats or drifts slowly, sometimes moving horizontally, sometimes bobbing up and down. It can last from a few seconds to several minutes. In some cases, it passes through solid objects, glass windows, wooden walls, even metal aircraft fuselages, without leaving a mark. In other cases, it explodes, sometimes violently, causing fires or injuries. The behavior is erratic and unpredictable. One of the challenges in studying ball lightning is its rarity. It occurs infrequently and without warning. Most sightings last only seconds, giving observers little time to react, and almost no time to set up instruments. There are no reliable ways to predict when or where ball lightning will appear. As a result, there are very few scientific measurements of the phenomenon. Most of what we know comes from eyewitness testimony, photographs, and a handful of instrumental recordings. This makes it difficult to develop and test theories. Despite the scarcity of data, scientists have proposed numerous explanations. One theory suggests ball lightning is a form of plasma, a hot, ionized gas. Ordinary lightning creates plasma in the channel between cloud and ground, but that plasma dissipates almost instantly. For ball lightning to persist, something must confine and sustain the plasma. One hypothesis involves electromagnetic fields. If a lightning strike creates a region where electric and magnetic fields are tangled or knotted, they might trap plasma in a stable configuration. The fields would hold the plasma together, and the energy stored in the fields would keep it glowing. This idea is appealing, but creating such a configuration in a laboratory has proven difficult. Another theory proposes that ball lightning involves a chemical reaction. When lightning strikes the ground, it can vaporize minerals in the soil, particularly silicon compounds. These vaporized particles might form a fine aerosol or network of filaments that react with oxygen in the air, releasing energy as light and heat. This would be a slow combustion process, which could explain why ball lightning lasts longer than ordinary lightning. Laboratory experiments have produced glowing balls using similar principles, by vaporizing silicon in an electric arc. The resulting spheres glow, float, and behave somewhat like reported ball lightning. But they are small, short-lived, and do not fully match all observed characteristics. A third idea involves microwave radiation. Some researchers have suggested that lightning can create pockets of microwave energy in the atmosphere, which then ionize the air and produce a glowing plasma ball. This theory gains support from reports of ball lightning appearing inside aircraft and buildings, places where external lightning should not penetrate. Microwaves can pass through non-metallic materials, so a microwave cavity effect might explain these indoor sightings. However, the source and mechanism for generating such intense microwaves remain unclear. There is also the possibility that ball lightning is not a single phenomenon but a category that includes several different types of events with different causes. Some instances might be plasma, others chemical reactions, still others optical illusions or rare atmospheric phenomena we do not yet recognize. The variability in reports, size, color, duration, behavior supports this idea. What witnesses call ball lightning might be a collection of distinct phenomena that happen to share some superficial similarities. One of the most puzzling aspects of ball lightning is its reported ability to pass through solid objects. Witnesses have described it moving through closed windows, walls, and even the metal skin of airplanes. This seems to violate basic physics. Solid objects should block or interact with anything physical. If ball lightning is plasma, it should burn or melt materials it touches. If it is a chemical reaction, it should leave residues. Yet in many cases, it passes through without leaving evidence. Some researchers have questioned whether these reports are accurate. It is possible that witnesses, startled and frightened, misperceived what happened. Perhaps the ball lightning appeared on one side of a barrier and a similar glow appeared on the other, and observers assumed it passed through. Or perhaps the barrier was not as solid as it seemed, a window cracked or a wall with a gap. These explanations are not entirely satisfying, but they are more plausible than a physical object dematerializing and rematerializing. Ball lightning has occasionally been associated with injuries and deaths, though such cases are rare. There are reports of people being burned, knocked unconscious, or killed by ball lightning. In some instances, objects have caught fire or exploded. These accounts suggest that ball lightning can carry significant energy and can discharge that energy suddenly. This makes it a genuine hazard, though an uncommon one. The unpredictability of the phenomenon adds to the danger. Unlike ordinary lightning, which follows predictable paths from cloud to ground, ball lightning can appear indoors, move erratically, and linger, creating prolonged risk. Efforts to create ball lightning in the laboratory have met with limited success. Researchers have produced glowing spheres using high-voltage discharges, microwave cavities, and chemical reactions. Some of these laboratory balls resemble ball lightning in appearance and behavior, but none fully replicate all reported characteristics. The difficulty in reproducing the phenomenon suggests that natural ball lightning may involve conditions or processes that are hard to recreate artificially. It might require specific atmospheric conditions, precise energy inputs, or configurations that occur by chance during thunderstorms. The study of ball lightning is hampered by the lack of data. What scientists need most are detailed measurements, spectrum analysis of the light, magnetic and electric field readings, high-speed video, and temperature measurements. Such data would constrain theories and rule out impossible explanations. But obtaining this data requires being in the right place at the right time with the right equipment, a combination that has rarely occurred. As technology improves, particularly with widespread use of cameras and sensors, the chances of capturing ball lightning on instruments increase. Already, there are more photographs and videos of the phenomenon than existed a few decades ago. Each new piece of evidence brings us closer to understanding. Ball lightning occupies a strange position in science. It is accepted as real by most researchers, yet it remains unexplained. It is a phenomenon that exists in the gap between observation and theory, witnessed by thousands but understood by none. It reminds us that nature still holds surprises, that there are processes occurring in the atmosphere that we have not fully unraveled. It also reminds us of the importance of taking eyewitness accounts seriously, even when they describe things that seem impossible. Science progresses not by dismissing the strange, but by investigating it. Ball lightning is strange, but it is also real, and someday we will understand it. Until then, it drifts through the storm, glowing and silent, a reminder that the world is still full of mysteries, and that some of them float right past us, visible for a moment and then gone. Part 13. The Nazca Lines. In the arid coastal plains of southern Peru, stretching across nearly 200 square miles of desert, there are drawings. They are enormous, some extending more than 1,000 feet in length. They depict animals, plants, geometric shapes, and strange figures that defy easy interpretation. They were created by removing the reddish pebbles that cover the desert floor to reveal the lighter ground beneath, forming lines and shapes that have endured for centuries. These are the Nazca lines, and they were made by people who would never see them as they were meant to be seen, from the air. The Nazca culture flourished in this region between roughly 100 BCE and 800 CE. They were skilled engineers and artists, known for their elaborate pottery and underground aqueducts. But their most enduring legacy is the lines. There are over 800 straight lines, 300 geometric figures, and 70 animal and plant designs. The animal figures include a hummingbird, a monkey, a spider, a condor, and a killer whale, among others. The geometric shapes range from simple triangles and trapezoids to complex spirals and zigzags. Some lines run perfectly straight for miles, while others curve and intersect in intricate patterns. What makes the Nazca lines remarkable is their scale. The hummingbird is over 300 feet long. The spider is nearly 150 feet across. Many of the geometric shapes cover several acres. To create these figures with such precision required careful planning and surveying. The Nazca people had no access to aerial views, yet they managed to lay out massive designs that maintain their proportions and alignment across vast distances. They likely used simple tools, stakes and ropes, to mark out the designs, working from small-scale models. The dry, windless climate of the region preserved the lines. Rain is rare, and there is little erosion. The dark pebbles, once moved, stay moved, leaving the designs visible for over 1,000 years. The purpose of the Nazca lines has been debated for decades. When they were first studied seriously in the early 20th century, some researchers proposed they were part of an ancient astronomical calendar. Maria Reich, a German mathematician and archaeologist who devoted her life to studying and preserving the lines, believed many of them aligned with celestial events, the rising and setting of stars, the solstices, and the positions of the sun and moon at significant times of the year. She argued that the Nazca people used the lines to track the seasons and predict agricultural cycles. Some alignments do appear to correspond to astronomical events, but many do not, and the theory does not explain all the figures, particularly the animals. Another theory suggests the lines were pathways for ritual processions. The straight lines could have been walked as part of religious ceremonies, connecting sacred sites or leading to places where offerings were made. Archaeological evidence shows that pottery shards and other artifacts are found along some of the lines, supporting the idea that people traveled along them for ceremonial purposes. The animal figures might have represented gods, spirits, or totems important to Nazca religion. Walking the lines could have been a form of pilgrimage or a way to communicate with the divine. A more recent hypothesis connects the lines to water. The Nazca region is one of the driest places on Earth. Water was precious, and the Nazca people built an extensive system of underground aqueducts to bring water from the mountains to their fields. Some researchers believe the lines were part of rituals related to water and fertility. The animal figures might symbolize water sources or rain. The spider, for example, is associated with water in some Andean cultures. The lines might have been offerings to the gods, prayers for rain traced on a monumental scale. The geometric shapes, particularly the trapezoids, might represent fields or irrigated areas, symbols of agricultural abundance. One of the more controversial ideas was proposed by Erich von Däniken in his book, Chariots of the Gods, published in 1968. He suggested the lines were runways or signals for extraterrestrial spacecraft. This theory captured popular imagination but was soundly rejected by archaeologists and scientists. There is no evidence that the lines were ever used as landing sites, and the soil of the Nazca Desert would not support the weight of any aircraft. The theory also ignores the cultural and historical context of the Nazca people, who had clear artistic and religious traditions that explain the creation of the lines without invoking aliens. Modern archaeology has provided a more nuanced understanding. The lines were likely created for multiple reasons, and their purposes may have evolved over the centuries they were made. They served religious, ceremonial, and possibly astronomical functions. They were expressions of identity, marking the landscape as Nazca territory and demonstrating the society's organizational power and devotion. Creating the lines required coordination, labor, and shared purpose, activities that would have reinforced social cohesion and cultural identity. What remains puzzling is why the Nazca people invested so much effort into designs they could not fully appreciate from ground level. Some of the lines and figures can be seen from nearby hills, but many are only comprehensible from the air. Did the Nazca believe their gods could see the designs from the sky? Were the lines meant to be seen by celestial beings or ancestors who had ascended to the heavens? Or was the act of creation itself more important than the finished product? The process of making the lines a ritual in its own right? These questions touch on the fundamental nature of art, belief, and human expression. The Nazca lines are not just archaeological artifacts, they are windows into a worldview we can only partially reconstruct. Efforts to preserve the lines face challenges. Tourism has increased, and while most visitors view the lines from observation towers or small aircraft, unauthorized access has caused damage. Footprints and tire tracks have scarred some figures. In 2014, Greenpeace activists walked onto one of the figures to place a banner, causing irreversible damage to the fragile surface. The incident sparked international outrage and highlighted the vulnerability of the lines. Peruvian authorities have increased protection measures, but the vastness of the site makes complete security difficult. The Nazca lines stand as a testament to human creativity and the desire to create meaning on a grand scale. They remind us that ancient peoples were capable of vision and ambition that matched or exceeded our own. They also remind us that not all mysteries have clear answers. We may never know exactly why the Nazca people made the lines, what rituals were performed there, or what the figures meant to those who created them. But the lines endure, traced across the desert, silent and immense, waiting for us to walk among them and wonder. From the deserts of Peru, we turn to the forests of North America and a mystery that walks on two legs. Part 4: More hums. We have already touched upon the Taos hum earlier in this journey, but the phenomenon of mysterious hums heard around the world deserves deeper exploration, for it is not limited to one town in New Mexico. Reports of persistent, low-frequency humming sounds have come from dozens of locations across the globe, affecting thousands of people. The hum is always described in similar terms: a low, droning noise like a distant engine or electrical transformer, audible primarily indoors and at night, and heard by only a fraction of the population. Those who hear it often suffer greatly. Sleep becomes difficult, concentration impossible, and the constant noise can lead to anxiety, depression, and despair. Yet instruments detect nothing, and neighbors hear nothing. The hum remains one of the most frustrating and personal of unexplained phenomena. The global nature of the hum suggests it is not a single localized source but either a widespread environmental phenomenon or something related to human physiology. Reports have come from England, Scotland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and numerous locations across the United States. In each case, a small percentage of residents, usually between 2 and 10%, report hearing the sound. The affected individuals tend to be middle-aged, though there are exceptions. Some have excellent hearing, others have hearing loss. There seems to be no consistent pattern that predicts who will hear the hum and who will not. One of the best documented cases is the Windsor hum in Ontario, Canada. Beginning around 2011, residents of Windsor reported a persistent low-frequency noise that rattled windows and kept people awake at night. The sound was loud enough that some could feel vibrations in their homes. Researchers from Western University conducted extensive studies, deploying seismometers and acoustic sensors throughout the city. They were able to detect low-frequency sound waves, confirming that in this case, the hum was not purely subjective. By analyzing the characteristics of the sound and triangulating its direction, they traced the source across the Detroit River to Zug Island, an industrial area on the American side. The island houses steel mills and other heavy industry. While the exact source on the island was never definitively pinpointed, the investigation strongly suggested industrial machinery was responsible. Efforts were made to reduce the noise, including working with the industrial operators, and reports of the hum in Windsor decreased, though some residents still claim to hear it. The Windsor case is significant because it demonstrated that at least some hums have external, physical sources. But it also highlighted how difficult it is to locate low-frequency sounds. Sound waves at very low frequencies, below 20 Hz, travel long distances, penetrate buildings easily, and are hard to pinpoint. Standard acoustic equipment is not always sensitive to these frequencies, and even when they are detected, identifying the exact source requires sophisticated analysis and sometimes international cooperation, as in the Windsor case. However, not all hums have been traced to external sources. In many locations, extensive investigations have found no measurable sound that corresponds to the reports. This has led researchers to consider whether the hum might originate within the auditory system of those who hear it. The human ear is a complex and sensitive organ. It does not simply receive sound, it actively processes and sometimes generates it. Tinnitus, the perception of ringing or buzzing in the ears, affects millions of people and is generated internally, often as a result of damage to the hair cells in the inner ear. Could the hum be a form of tinnitus? Traditional tinnitus is typically high-pitched, a ringing, hissing, or buzzing sound. The hum, by contrast, is low-pitched and often described as external rather than inside the head. But there are forms of low-frequency tinnitus, and the perception of sound as external versus internal can vary. Some researchers have proposed that the hum might be caused by spontaneous otoacoustic emissions, sounds produced by the outer hair cells of the cochlea. These cells can vibrate on their own, creating sounds that are usually too faint to hear. Under certain conditions, perhaps involving stress, environmental factors, or individual differences in ear anatomy, these emissions might become perceptible. Another physiological hypothesis involves the tensor tympani muscle in the middle ear. This small muscle can contract in response to loud sounds, protecting the inner ear from damage. In some individuals, the muscle contracts spontaneously or in response to stress, producing a low rumbling sound. This phenomenon, known as tensor tympani syndrome, can cause symptoms similar to those reported by hum sufferers. However, the sounds associated with tensor tympani syndrome are usually brief and intermittent, not the constant hum that people describe. Environmental factors may also play a role. Low-frequency sounds from natural sources, ocean waves, wind, seismic activity, and human sources, traffic, industrial machinery, HVAC systems, are ubiquitous in the modern world. Most people do not consciously perceive these sounds, but some individuals may be more sensitive. This heightened sensitivity could be due to differences in ear anatomy, neurological processing, or even psychological factors such as stress or anxiety, which can amplify the perception of background noise. Once someone becomes aware of the hum, they may find it difficult to ignore, leading to a cycle where attention to the sound makes it seem louder and more persistent. The psychological toll of the hum should not be underestimated. People who hear it often feel isolated and disbelieved. When neighbors and family members cannot hear the sound, sufferers may be told it is all in their head, a phrase that is both dismissive and, in a sense, potentially accurate if the hum has an internal physiological origin. This does not mean the hum is imagined or any less real to those who experience it. The distress is genuine. Sleep deprivation, frustration, and the feeling of being unable to escape the noise can have serious effects on mental and physical health. Support groups and online communities have formed where hum sufferers share experiences and coping strategies. Some find relief through white noise machines, fans, or other masking sounds. Others move to different locations, though in some cases the hum seems to follow them, suggesting the source may be internal or that low-frequency environmental noise is so widespread that escaping it is difficult. A few individuals have reported that certain medical treatments, such as medications for anxiety or muscle relaxants, reduce the intensity of the hum, which lends some support to physiological explanations. The mystery of the global hums lies at the intersection of physics, biology, and psychology. It challenges our understanding of sound, hearing, and perception. It also raises questions about the modern acoustic environment. As human activity has increased, so has the production of low-frequency noise. Wind turbines, for example, have been linked to complaints of humming and vibration by people living nearby. While studies have not consistently found harmful effects, the reports persist. Similarly, industrial equipment, power lines, and even natural gas pipelines can produce low-frequency vibrations that travel through the ground and air. The hum may not have a single explanation. Some instances are likely external sounds, real but difficult to locate. Others may be internal, products of the auditory system responding to environmental triggers or physiological conditions. Still others might be a combination, where a faint external sound is amplified by internal sensitivity, creating a perception that feels external and constant. The variability in reports, different descriptions, different locations, different affected populations supports the idea that the hum is a category encompassing multiple phenomena. What is clear is that for those who hear it, the hum is a burden that deserves serious attention. Dismissing it as imaginary does not help and may harm. Research into low-frequency sound, human hearing sensitivity, and the health effects of noise exposure continues. As our tools improve, we may eventually identify the sources, whether external or internal, and develop ways to mitigate the impact. Until then, the hum remains an unexplained mystery, a sound that some hear and others do not, a reminder that the world we perceive is shaped not just by what is out there, but by the unique workings of our own senses.